Press the button. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fourth and final Audit and Governance meeting of this civic year. I'm Josh Williams, Councillor for Park Ward and Chair. I'll read the webcast notice before anything else. Please note that this meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast via the Council's website. You should be aware the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. Members of the public, hello. Seated in the public gallery will not ordinarily be filmed by the automated camera system. However, please be aware that if you move forward of the pillar, or in the unlikely event of a technical malfunction or other unforeseen circumstances, your image may be captured. Therefore, by entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. Good evening. We have, I'm just staring up at the screen to check who has been dialing in. We've got one apology from Councillor Dennis this evening, who may be hoping to join us remotely on Teams, but we'll keep an eye on the screen and see if he joins us. Thank you very much to him for letting us know. Committee, with your permission, I'm going to move item 13 to the top of the agenda, which is our external auditors accounts update, followed by item 12, which is our own officers accounts update, and then we'll move through the agenda as numbered. I'll start with the first three admin items, though, to get those out of the way. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? No, thank you very much. Have we all had chance to read the minutes? Members were all present at the last meeting. Thank you very much. Are we happy to agree on the minutes as an accurate record? Agreed all round. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael. And we don't have any questions from members of the public this evening. We have none tabled, so we're able to move, and I can see the screen is working. Good evening. We're able to move to EY, our external auditors, for an update, a verbal update on the 1920 audit. And we have a report which came in on Thursday, if my memory serves me, which is regarding the 2021 audit. So I'll hand over to Maria and Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. So if I could start with the kind of overall picture of the audit. So our overall aim is to enable the council to catch up from the point of view of the overrunning audit. So our aim is to get the 1920 audit signed off this month, and then hopefully closely followed by the 2021 audit. And you'll have seen from your papers that a lot of the work on the 2021 audit is well underway, and a chunk of it is complete. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to bring the audit results report to this committee. So if I may, I'm just going to ask Adrian to pick up both of those. So the final steps that we're taking at the moment on the 1920, and then to take you through the audit results report for the 2021.
Yeah, thanks, Maria, and good evening, committee. So just to start with the 1920 audit, so we're in the final stages of the conclusion of the audit. We had a meeting earlier with Darren and his team just to talk through some of the final procedural aspects of that. Maria and I had a meeting today, excuse me, with one of the other partners on the engagement as well, just to talk through some of the final conclusion pieces. So hopefully as we move into next week, we would then be in a position to look towards the conclusion of the audit, and also then do the final representations we'd receive back through from both management and those charged with governance in terms of letters of representation. So as I say, the 1920 audit is coming to a conclusion, and at this stage actually we're still on for an unqualified opinion on the financial statements, which is obviously a big step forward for the council in terms of the previous two audit opinions. That is obviously still subject to some final reviews and checks, but at the moment that is the current position in terms of the opinion. In terms of the value for money conclusion for 1920, as previously reported, we still have two qualifications on there in respect of one is around the control environment for 1920, which is consistent with the head of internal audit opinion for that year, which was limited assurance. And then the other one is around specifically working with partners and third parties, and that specifically refers to the Ofsted inspection findings, which were still relevant as that period through to the 31st of March 2020. So hopefully a step forward in terms of the financial statement opinion, and obviously that would then reflect well in terms of future years in terms of our risk assessment and overall conclusions for forward audits, and then those two areas of qualification on the value for money criteria, which hopefully as we move into 2021 we would then have to do a different risk assessment under the new code, and hopefully we would then see if we could move away from any of those areas of qualification. So I'll stop and take any questions if anybody wants to kind of raise anything specifically on 1920.
Perfect, thank you very much. Members, do we have anything on 1920? We will get our officers' report on that following this. No, we'd like you to move on to the 2021, please.
Okay, so it's positive that we've actually been able to make good progress on the 2021 audit. So normally we wouldn't kind of run two audits together, but because of the kind of desire from the council and also ourselves to try and bring the council back in track and get them through to the conclusion of various audits that are still outstanding, we have progressed well with the 2021 audit. So we've had a team in for the last 3-4 months working through different areas of the accounts. And we've had really good engagement from the council, having weekly or bi-weekly meetings to kind of go through key points. And again, there's been really good levels of engagement from both the director of finance, the chief accountant, and the teams below the chief accountant to kind of work through and resolve areas as quickly as possible. I'll just take you through some key areas of the report, and the page numbers are from my specific report. So if I could just start on page 5, which is the materiality and group scoping. And I'll just give the committee a chance to kind of catch up with some of the papers. No change really in materiality assessment. We still set it at the 1% and 50% threshold. Our group scoping remains consistent. So Reading Transport Limited and Brighter Futures for Children are still considered significant. And then Homes for Reading is a review scope only. In terms of page 7, we take you through a VFM update, and that really talks you through the change in the code. And some of the sub-criteria which have changed between the old code and the new code. Page 9 refers to section 7 within the report, and that's really where we've recommended some control findings and recommendations. And again, as we work through towards the conclusion of the audit, we'll report back to this committee in terms of progress against those. Pages 13 to 19 detail in quite a lot of detail the significant risks we've identified. And essentially we have quite a lot of consistency there year on year. I think the big difference coming in 2021 is around COVID grants and the treatment of those. Page 22, it talks you through the audit differences identified to date. So you can see in there's a reclassification error that we've identified. And as we move through the audit and the conclusion of the audit, it will bring back further reports to the committee so you can see the changes between the draft accounts and the final accounts. Page 24 to 26 goes into a bit more detail in the new value for money criteria. And again, you can see there that we've identified the qualifications from the 1920 audit, which will then impact into our assessment for 2021. And as I say, on pages 31 to 33, on the control environment, we detail each of the findings in terms of the control finding recommendations and also how we classified those between low risk, medium risk and higher risk. And then just as we move through the report, we just confirm again that we're still independent. We will update the fee position as we move through and conclude the 1920 audit. And again, any additional fee that we request would then have to be approved by PSAA. And also they would have consultations with the council as well, just to talk through that. And I think I'll probably stop there actually and take any questions if anybody wants to pick up anything specifically in terms of the 2021 audit results report.
Thank you very much. I've got a couple of questions, but members, do you have any? I'm not quite sure what you can see from your screens, but members are furiously rifling through the report as we speak. I might ask a couple of questions, and then if any members have time and think of anything, then they'll get my attention. First of all, I think I noticed on page 8, where I think members are asked to do something specific, page 8 of your report, which is to review the key audit issues and any other matters indeed, just to ensure that there's nothing else we want to raise and that we agree with the resolution of the issues and there's nothing else significant we want considered. I wonder if you could just give us a bit of guidance. There isn't a section called key audit issues, so which do you think are the specific key things you want us to address our attention to? And when we've identified those key audit issues, what is the resolution that you mention on page 8. Is that the sort of sum total of the actions you've taken with regards to that issue? And are we supposed to assess that? I'll hand that question back to you.
Do you want me to start, Adrian, and then I'll... Yeah. So from the point of view of just asking you to review the matters, that's really the kind of key audit issues you're raising. So that would be the audit differences that Adrian's talked about, the significant risks that we've raised and our conclusions against those, so the work that we've done against those. And then later in the report, the recommendations that we're making, where at the moment, because it's an initial draft report, there's opportunity for officers to respond to those recommendations. So it's really the those points within the report that's basically either flagging issues or misstatements, if you like, that have either been corrected or uncorrected, but also where we're flagging to you, these are the areas that we've deemed to be of risk and where we've concentrated our work. And it's really saying to you, are there any other things that we should know about, that you know about? Are you comfortable, you know, from the point of view of the assurance that we're setting out here, that there aren't any other significant issues that you think we should have considered? So it's not asking you to be qualified auditors or to unpack our methodology, but more saying to you as a committee and those charged with governance, having read the report, is there anything that you're thinking, actually, you know, there's a real issue there within the statements, or I'm really worried about this matter and I'm not sure that the auditors have picked that up, or indeed, you know, they're raising recommendations. Are, you know, do they make sense? Do the recommendations they're raising make sense for us? So it's more about that. It's more saying, having received our audit results report, is there anything that you're aware of, and are you comfortable with the assurances we're setting out?
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think that was clear. Members, are you happy we've had enough time to sort of meaningfully review this draft document? It came in on Thursday, but I don't know if members all received it. And then we had a long weekend, so some of you may have only picked this up yesterday, which is not a great deal of time. It's 60 pages of dense text. No, there's some lovely pictures as well to brighten it up. So do we have any questions or comments or red flags, I guess, which is what we're being asked for in any of this, or are you not happy really that you've had enough time to review this yet? Not sure. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson.
No, I just wanted to add that actually, personally, I'm not happy that I've had enough time to review it. And it's not meant as any criticism at all of the document, just time pressures.
If I may, Chairman.
Yep.
Just on that point. So the report's been brought just really to be as a helpful kind of, this is where we are with the audit. There will be a final draft of this report, which will come into papers in the usual kind of timing of papers. It was purely, as we've made such headway with the audit, we thought, wouldn't it be nice to just put the first cut of this report out to committee? So it will come back round. There will be plenty of time to look at it before we finalise the audit.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I think we're happy with that. I think we're grateful to see it in draft, but I think we're not going to have any meaningful responses for you at this stage, having just received it. I think that's probably the point. So we should be looking at a final copy of this coming to the July meeting. Is that the right timeline?
That's certainly what we're aiming at. I think I see Adrian's looking to come off mute, but that's certainly our aim at the moment.
Perfect. Okay, given that, members, obviously you can continue to read this at your leisure if you wish, and we will get a full and final report coming to the next meeting. That's what we're aiming at, targeted anyway. We've just got one more thing from me then, I guess that is the letter of representation. So I've read the text, and my apologies because a very similar text was in the September meeting, but I hadn't picked up on it. I'm afraid you're dealing with a new chair and a fairly new committee as well, so my apologies. Having read through that text, as it's written, it doesn't seem appropriate for the committee to sign off on that at all, because that's coming from the sort of professional management of the council, from our 151 officer and others. So I think, having spoken to Darren Carter and others, we shall probably take that offline and look at that in the coming week or so, and see what we can do about drafting a text that members would be signing rather than professional accountants and so on.
Can I just pick that point up? Apologies.
Please, yes, please.
The text in the letter of rep has to be set as it is. It's set by the standards and cannot be amended in that way. However, just to be clear, as the chair of the committee, you're purely signing to say that this letter of representation has come through to the committee. The representations are coming from Darren Carter as the Director of Finance. So the detail within that letter has to sit as it is, and those representations from Darren as your Director of Finance to me to say this is everything, Maria, this is everything under all these areas, and I'm confirming that you've had all the information you need. As the chair of the committee, you're signing to say, yes, you know, we've seen this at committee. You're not giving me those representations. So just to be absolutely clear, so you're signing to say, to confirm it's come to this committee. So for the 2019-20 accounts, that's something that we'd be looking for you to do just before I give my opinion later this month. Sorry, we should have made that clear on the management representation letter.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. So there's two things then. The first is that we're able to just add a line in, are we, to note that that is the purpose of the chair's signature, because as it stands, it's just the chair's signature below the letter. So, and the second thing is, if committee is saying that they've seen the text, is the text exactly the same as came in the September meeting, or has it changed in any significant way? So
I don't know, Adrian, if you want to pick that up, but the text in the September meeting would have been the 1921, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so the text does change occasionally depending on kind of circumstantial events. So, for example, during the COVID pandemic, there was additional text added in for COVID. And then during the recent conflict in Ukraine, there's been some additional text added in for that, because in certain industries, some clients are more susceptible to those type of events. So it really depends on the timing of what's happening in the world, so to speak, but also kind of what's happening nationally within the UK as well.
But for the 1921, that certainly was taken through committee, and I know members did see it. So more than happy for you to add in a sentence before your signature, just to say, you know, I can confirm that this was discussed at the committee in whenever it was, last year in September or whenever it was, from the point of view of the 1921.
Oh, I'm very happy. Are members happy with that? If there have been any very minor changes, we can quickly email them round members. But I'm sure they're happy if it's very minor for me to continue and sign. So that sounds perfect. So that will follow for 1920 and shortly for 2021 and onwards, we hope. I don't think I have any more questions. I did have a vague idea that when we note a 5 million disclosure error in the reports, we should probably just check as a committee and get a few little details on what that was, because I think we just have a line in the report saying there was a 5 million disclosure error in note 28 financial instruments. So perhaps, as that was the only major thing that appeared to jump out at me, maybe we could just get a few details on that, and then I think we can close this item off.
Yeah, so I think it was really just a classification error between two different categories within the financial instruments note. So it may sound significant for the committee, but in terms of the 5 million, it really was just a reclassification within a disclosure note. So nothing significant from the point of view of exposure to the council, but just one of the disclosure requirements that we need to make.
Thank you. Any more questions? Otherwise, I don't think there's a vote here, but we should thank our external auditors for all their hard work. And we seem to be closing in on some signatures, which is where we started the year, because that's what we were talking about. But we end the year as we started it, but with lots and lots of hard work in between. Okay, there's no further questions. Thanks very much to EY, and we'll see you probably at the top of the meeting again. I don't know who'll be on the committee, of course, but this committee will see you in July.
Thank you. We'll stay on for the next item if that's okay, Chairman, but thank you for letting us go early.
Very welcome. Thank you very much. That was item 13, and we're going to move backward or forward, I'm not sure, to item 12. And let me find my papers before we start. Right. Does everyone have their agenda in front of them? Item 12 with Mark Sanders to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairs. Just a very short verbal update from myself, really reflecting the status of the audit process that you've just heard tonight. So first off, I would say it's really good news that we are, in touching distance of signing off the 1920 Statement of Accounts in a much improved position from previous years. So there's huge thanks that I would give to my team, but also my predecessors, because I think the work to get us to this position has taken probably best part of 3 to 4 years of continual improvement work. So it is a wonderful achievement to bring that milestone into place. So if we are getting sign-off achieved sometime within the next month, preferably within the next week or so with those signatures, that will be an excellent position to end this calendar month. The 2021 position has been the main focus of my team over the last few months since committee, and I would say that our responses have been as timely as they can be to audit queries, and as it stands tonight, we are just about completely up to date with our provision of information to support the audit process. Moving forward also to 21-22, so we've not started that audit process yet, but we have started the preparation work for the 21-22 accounts. So this is continuing, and we expect to look to bring you draft accounts probably to the July committee or before we will produce those. It will be depending on progress and reflecting any amendments to as a result of the 2021 audit. We would reflect those in the draft 21-22 accounts. Our focus throughout all this is on ensuring full transparency and accuracy of accounts and bringing them a detailed and ready, good quality set of accounts to this committee. I'll stop at that point, Chair.
Thank you very much. Just looking down the line. I think congratulations in order. We are, fingers crossed, a week away from sign off. I can see Councillor Terry's face. We'll believe it when it happens, quite rightly, but we're close, and that must represent an enormous amount of hard work and professional work from our officers. So thank you very much indeed. It looks as though we're presented with the possibility of, if I understood this correctly, unqualified accounts for the first time in 3 years, which is again, congratulations to the team. Everyone's nodding. And we've got a rough outline of progress on the other audits. So is there any questions? Yes, Councillor Gittings.
Yeah, I mean, just obviously, many people are tuning into the webcast, but could you just sum up what the value of an unqualified audit is, to say, to a layperson? What does that mean, and also what does it mean in terms of obviously the cost of the audit and the cost going forward and the speed of the audits going forward?
Yeah, the benefits are enormous. So to enable to get a position of unqualified set of accounts enables us to know with confidence that the accounts are materially right, and we can rely on that for our future planning and our future decision making. So the more we move towards that position, the more we can reduce the amount of audit testing work on the audit field work, which means that the length of time to prepare the accounts, but also to go through the external audit process will be shortened, because the volume of testing, of substantive testing, will be somewhat reduced, because more reliance can be placed on the control framework that we have in place. So the more we improve our processes, the shorter the process will be, the faster we'll get signed off, and the more informed and reliable our decision making will be on matters of reserves, and end of year debtors and creditors position.
Thanks for that, because obviously there's been a lot of publicity around the accounts being behind, and questions about people's competence, etc., etc. So it's good that we are hopefully moving to an unqualified situation. I suppose, but just a follow up, how would you suddenly become to a situation where, say, in 3 years' time we became unqualified? What would have to have happened? Would controls have had to be laxed? Would something have to be found in an audit as it goes forward? Because clearly that's what's happened, in the past, and why we're playing catch up.
I think that's quite a difficult one to answer. What might tip us back in that direction? I think I'd rather answer that by saying, now that we've maintained the position of becoming almost unqualified when we do get this, and the maintenance of that looking forward, we would underpin all of our arrangements in the management of the financial services and the processes that we have. Our control environment is such improved. You'll see that through improved internal audit report verifications that you'll see later on tonight's agenda. All this in play will lead us to maintenance of an unqualified set of accounts position, and that is absolutely 100% my aim and the aim of the final accounts team, to maintain that position and improve it looking forward.
So I mean, that good news. And I suppose we always try and compare yourselves with other councils around the country. I know that the guidelines now are much tougher in this term. I know some councils run into trouble. So roughly speaking, if we were to have reached this unqualified situation several years, would that place us in sort of amongst the better councils as regards this? I know I'm not trying to have some sort of competition, but it's just good to get some sort of feel at where we are, in terms of this, because there's been a lot of criticism and all. But we know that other councils have had this problem, and stiffer guidelines are in place, don't we?
So I think we're heading soon to be in the main pack of performance, and you look at all authorities, and perhaps we're aiming in a year's time to be more in the upper quartile. Considering our stable environment, our corporate plan, and our ambitions of this council, and the risk management process that we have surrounding that through the annual sign-off of the annual governance statement, or the due diligence that puts into the budget setting process. I don't see anything that's looking like we're looking at in areas of increased risk, such that it would mean that an entry in the accounts, there's some uncertainty over it. And this is where you heard Maria and Adrian earlier talk about materiality levels that relate to the accounts, where they're around £4 or £5 million in value. I don't see us being in a position that we would have such large items of uncertainty in our accounts that might itself lead to something that turns us back into a qualified position. So I think our control of these of all that, when you bring that together, will bring it into play. Thank you.
Perfect. Darren Carter, would you like to add?
Yeah, just one thing to add from my perspective. So there are a lot of councils out there, but we're a relatively small group of chief finance officers who have to deal with these issues. And a few weeks ago, I won't name the council, but I had a deputy section 151 officer contact me because they are on the verge of being qualified for the first time in many years, and they wanted to discuss what the impact is on a council of being qualified, but also to understand from us who've been through this journey about what we've done to turn it around. So I think reputationally, it's very nice now that I'm getting councils contacting me asking how we're actually turning things around, rather than being one of the councils that people are thinking they're a problem on.
Thank you very much. Councillor Terry.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, well, while we're on this subject then, there have been other matters, like like the pension scheme, where we're waiting on others to sign off their accounts before we can sign off ours. Do you see, are those still matters that are out there, or are those all being resolved now as well? Because sometimes it's not even if we hadn't been behind, we wouldn't have been able to sign the accounts off anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor. So one of the reasons why the 1920 audit has taken so long was to do with a national issue, to do with accounting for infrastructure assets. We were hoping to be at this point several months ago, so that was a national issue that impacted on Reading the same as every other council. And there was very little we could do about that ourselves. So yeah, look, there are always issues. In Berkshire, we've got an issue at the moment to do with the RBWM audit of the 2021 accounts and the willingness of external auditors to sign off the 6 Berkshire authorities' accounts due to not having confirmation that the Berkshire Pension Fund accounts have been signed off. As far as I know, that's still the current state of play. RBWM had 1920 accounts signed off recently, very recently, but they haven't yet got 2021. So in all of this, we are managing things that are beyond our control to a degree. So it's not purely within our ability to be able to confirm to committee when some of these things will be concluded, because we don't live in isolation from the outside world.
Thank you. Perfect. Any other members wish to comment? No, I think I suppose it's worth remembering that we as a committee play our own role in maintaining the unqualified status of the accounts going forward. So we'll play our bit, and there's no vote particularly, but I think right, we better not minute congratulations. We'll do that at the next one, but let's minute our thanks to officers for getting us to this stage, and we'll hold congratulations for the next one. Thank you very much indeed. That was item 12. So I'll reshuffle my bits of paper, and we are back round to item 4, which was going to be the first, but is not now. The Internal Audit Quarterly Progress Report. And I'm looking at our Chief Auditor, Paul Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. So this is my usual quarterly update report, which provides a high-level overview of audits completed in quarter 4 of the 22-23 financial year, and it will also provides an ongoing update of the work of the Council's Corporate Investigations team. As ever, the detail is in Appendix 1. Also attached to the report in Appendix 2 is the direct payments internal audit report, because that particular audit was given a limited assurance opinion. So in the last quarter, a total of 3 audit reviews were finalised, 2 receiving a positive opinion and 1 receiving a negative opinion, and in addition 1 grant was certified to confirm that the conditions of the grant determination had been met. So if I ask you to go down to page 19 of the Appendix 1. So the first one where we've given a reasonable assurance opinion is commercial assets and investments. So a review of this area confirmed that adequate systems are in place to identify, collect, record and monitor rental income due on commercial properties and investments. So that was given a reasonable assurance opinion. Next one down is the housing revenue accounts. I think the last audit in 2021, we gave limited assurance with a number of high risk areas which we were concerned about, including the lack of permanent expertise and resource, to ensure that services were fully supported in their roles in relation to the HRA, and the need for a common understanding of policies, procedures and processes for the HRA 30-year model. Now this follow-up review concluded and recognised that substantial progress has been made, and this area has now gone from limited to substantial assurance. Which is of course is positive. So there's now sufficient HRA expertise in both finance and within the service, and there's a clear alignment between the details in service area plans, the HRA 30-year model and the agreed HRA medium-term financial plan, annual budget and ongoing budget monitoring. So that was a very, very positive review. Section 2.3, page 22, is the work we've done on direct payments. Our audit review identified some weaknesses in the direct payment process, such as payment account setups not being authorised and checked, along with delays in the monitoring of user accounts. And on this basis, we issued a limited assurance opinion. As I say, the detail of this report is in Appendix 2. But we found just under 50% of accounts were either overdue at the time of were either due or overdue at the time of the audits. We also found a high number of occurrences where funds have been recovered, which highlights the difficulties in ensuring the payment allocation remains appropriate to needs. So there were a number of accounts with surplus balances which have been recovered at the rate of approximately 200,000 per year over the last 5 years. The corporate investigations team also did some work on this, really to identify that there was no fraudulent activities within these accounts, and that's reported further down in this report. But I can confirm that there was no fraud found, which is positive. So page 24 is just a snapshot of the audit plan where we are now. Obviously, we're now into April, which is the 2023-24 audit plan, but it'd be lovely to complete all audits by the 31st of March, but in reality that never happens. So you'll see there's a number at draft report stage, so they will have been finalised by now or in the process of being finalised, and those audits which have a start date will be carried over and completed within the next couple of months, and they'll come back to the July's meeting. And section 3 on page 27-28 just gives an overview of the work of the corporate investigations team. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Sorry for making you wait for that one. We are asked to consider the report. Councillor Terry, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. In reading the report, I was concerned to see that direct payments and then adult social care coming up again. It's very positive to note that there was no fraud found, and there is a very positive also management action plan. But I would like to suggest to committee that we invite the acting executive director or whoever she wants to nominate to perhaps attend the next or a future meeting, just to give us some meat on the bones, as it were, in terms of the action plan, how it's going and how it's progressing. I just think we have these reports for the reason to say, if we feel there's some concern, perhaps to call them in. So that's my proposal, Chair.
Absolutely, and we'll see these recommendations because it's limited. I can better check this. We'll see these coming through on the audit tracker that's reported, because these are from a limited assurance audit, so these will be seen. Would we as a committee like to call in the relevant officer for? Okay, would like to call in the officer for the very next meeting, or would we like to see these recommendations tracked through, noted, see some actions that we can challenge, and therefore is it more appropriate for sort of the next but one meeting? Do you have any thoughts, or just open up an invite to the officer to come in? Oh yes, of course.
You might like to consider that opinion also after you've seen the audit tracker, or at least had a conversation of that, because direct payments again come up on that as well. So that may add to your thoughts on whether you should invite the officer in or not.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Terry sounded fairly clear that an invite would be welcome. I was just wondering which meeting we would invite them to, whether we wanted to see some action against those tracked items, or maybe we've seen enough already, and we're happy to have a. Actually, if I'm honest, I don't really know the process. Would we be asking for someone to come and answer our questions, or would we like a small report for us to consider on this area so that we have some information and can then address that information?
I think it would be appropriate to ask an appropriate council officer to come along and reassure us that they are taking these matters seriously and making progress on their action plan to ensure that we don't have, that they move out of limited and other areas actually. So I think it is a question of what committee wants to do, whether it's next time or the autumn, but I think we should agree that we should see somebody.
I'm very happy to do that. That everyone else is nodding. Would that, members, are we asking for that person to come in and sit in a chair and fire questions at them, or would you like a small report to be brought by officers to the agenda? No, you're not. You're not bothered either way. Whatever the officer is happy to do. Councillor Emerson.
Yeah, just to say, in the past, when I think in my experience we've had one, and they've just come and given a small presentation and then asked questions, and that seemed to be appropriate in terms of the format and quite helpful.
Right. Well, let's just vote on that action at the end of this item, and we may, yeah, obviously we can continue the discussion against the audit tracker as well if we want to. Are there any other? Oh yes, Councillor Thompson. Anything else to raise?
No, actually, it's just a question of something I didn't quite understand the significance. Point 3.7.5 under investigations on page 14 refers to central government uplifting specific data sets from Reading as part of the National Fraud Incentive. So since February 23, when the matches were released for review, a total of 524 matches have been investigated. And this is quite possibly just my own ignorance. I don't know really what that means.
No, I didn't either. But I did email Paul Harrington, who did reply an email with some answers, which I was very grateful for. But I didn't really understand the context or detail around this either. So I wonder if you could fill us in a little bit now.
Right, so the National Fraud Initiative is a biannual initiative which is run by the Cabinet Office. So all public bodies must submit data, various data sets, then it's all matched. And the data is provided in the autumn and the results are published in January. So they were published this January and we've got about a year to investigate them. So we get a number of matches, and I think off the top of my head we had just over 4,000 matches, and they're prioritised by the Cabinet's Office. So they're done on percentages. So anything from, so for example, 75 to 100%, there's a high likelihood or possibility that there may have been fraud. So we investigate them. Then you have another category which will be 50 to 75%, 25 to 50%, etc. So the lower the score, the less likelihood of the risk of a fraud of occurring. So, for example, if it's 75% and above, that means it could be a name, it could be address, it could be a national insurance number, bank account details. Everything matches from one organisation to another. So there's a high likelihood that that match would be fraudulent. And then we investigate. So we tend to investigate the high risk cases. So we've got a period of about a year where we put all those together and we do investigations. So to date, as it says in the report, we've investigated a total of 524 cases, and which has resulted in estimated savings of about 41,000. Now the reason why it says estimated savings is because the next step is you've got to recover those losses. And those losses are not always recoverable. So that's why at the moment it's estimated. And where you have a match and you have a potential fraud, that can then take a long time before it gets into recovery. Sometimes it can take weeks, sometimes it can take years. So that's what we do. So that's a government run exercise, which is once every 2 years.
Thank you. Does that help?
It does. So am I right in thinking, so the matches are things which, for example, are flagged up in the government database as being suspect in some way?
Yeah, so for a good example, if I'll give you an example. So we would send employer details, and that could be names, addresses, bank account numbers. Every organisation does that. If there's a match where you've got somebody's bank account, somebody's sort code and name at two organisations, you would look at it and say, well, hang on a minute, how can that person be working over there and over here? So that's classed then as a match. And it's the same for there'll be lots of other matches which they do. Yeah, there's hundreds of them, but they would also look at single person discount. They would match that to our own electoral register, and you're looking at matches. That's what it does.
Perfect. Are you happy? Right, do we have any other things to raise? Otherwise, I think, no, I'm not seeing anything. Otherwise, I think we've received various reports from internal audit over this year, and they've noted that the team has been struck in some ways by sickness, leaving it slightly under-resourced. So I think, again, our thanks as a committee to officers who seem to have done, and in both internal audit and the corporate investigations team, who seem to have done an incredible amount of work over this year. So thank you. So I'm just going to get this right. We're going to vote that we are happy with the recommended actions, and that as a committee we request that the relevant officer attends the next 1 or 2 meetings to make a small presentation and answer questions regarding the limited assurance review that we have before us. We all happy with that? Nods? Thank you very much. That was item now, and item 5 is again Paul Harrington, I imagine, with the internal audit plan for the following year and the internal audit charter. I'll hand over.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the work of the internal audit team, what we plan to do over the next financial year. So it's our responsibility to provide an annual formal opinion on the council's control environment. And in the context of the public sector internal audit standards, which is our sort of professional standards that we must comply with, opinion does not mean simply a view, comment or observation. It means we've done sufficient work, evidence work, to support that conclusion. The attached plan in Appendix 1 will allow for the effective discharge of that responsibility. So what I do each year is I start in the autumn and I meet with all executive directors, assistant directors, Mr. Carter as a Section 151 officer, and I get an understanding of the risks and the concerns within their services. I look at the risk registers, the directorate risk registers, the strategic risk register, and that's how I start to populate the audit plan. I then look at the resource I've got and I prioritise that plan in terms of what we can do, what we'd like to do, and what we can't do in terms of we haven't got enough resource. So then I produce the plan, which is, I say, is attached in Appendix 1. Now it's a draft and it's an indicative internal plan, because like all plans, they don't always go as you would like them to end up. So things will come in during the year, new things will be added to the plan, things will get taken off. But I know in terms of what's important and what I must do, because I've got those prioritised. But the plan you will see, it's under each of the council's sort of key areas, of key objectives, key priorities, and then it's split into quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. Now, with regards to the actual plan, I'm asking for the Audit and Governance Committee to approve the audit plan, obviously for the 23-24 financial year. Also attached to the report is the internal audit charter. Now, this is a document that, again, we're required as part of our professional standards, and it really outlines the purpose, authority, responsibility, and role of internal audit. That goes to the corporate management team. So we ask the corporate management team to sign up to this charter, and we will publish the charter on our intranet, so staff are aware of it, so they know what our role, what our purpose is. And then again, that we ask the committee each year to approve the internal audit charter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any thoughts on the upcoming year for internal audit or on the charter? Nothing specific. I think I guess I just wanted to think through that your formal opinion will be based on the successful completion of this plan, although it is to some degree fluid because things happen. What is the risk of not completing the plan and therefore not being able to give the formal opinion that we're asking for? Or are you very confident at this stage you have the resource in place to hit your priorities?
That's a very good question, Chair. So a point in the year where I had a number of staff off sick or retired, I was in the position where I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to provide an assurance opinion. So that's when I would approach Mr. Carter as a Section 151 officer explained the risk, explained the concerns, and the decision was made to bring in interim resource so I could backfill. So at this point in time, I am confident that I will now be able to give an assurance opinion. However, if I couldn't have got that resource, then it could have been a completely different answer.
Thank you very much. I think the work from internal audit is vital to this committee. These reports are essential to what we're trying to do, I think, and more often than not, clear and concise and easy to read. I find the internal audit ones. Thank you again. Are we happy with the recommended actions? We are endorsing the plan for the next year and the charter. Agreed and nods all round. Thank you very much. That is approved. We can move on to item 6, the Strategic Risk Register Q4, Q1. And I think we'll get an introduction from Robin Pringle.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers the risks for Q4 that have been, the strategic risks that have been covered Q4 and those which are carried forward to Q1. You'll see in Appendix 1, there are 12 risks shown, 2 red, 9 amber, 1 green. No risks, no new risks have been escalated up from directorates this time, and no risks have been de-escalated from the strategic risk register down to the directorate risk registers. And there are no new risks that have been added separately into the strategic risk register. You'll recognise the 2 red risks. They're risks that we have discussed at this committee in the past. That's the lack of local special educational needs and disabilities placement in Reading, national problem, as we've discussed here, and also the cyber risk, which continues to be a red risk to local authority. I think we discussed that at length at last committee. You will also note that all but 1 risk, the scoring, so red, amber, has remained the same, haven't gone up, haven't gone down, and with the exception of the budget savings, the last risk and the pack in Appendix 1, and budget savings, managing costs and so on, that has dropped down to a green, which I think it's commendable when you consider a year ago that was in the red. I think that's me. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. We're asked to consider the strategic risk register. Actually, it's worth noting that I, along with other members of the committee, attended the risk management training. Thank you very much. Yeah, see, the people that went on it quite enjoyed it. And I would recommend it to all members of the committee. And Councillor Dennis was there as well. He's not been able to join us tonight, but he was at the training. I think it answered a lot of questions for me. I found it very valuable because I now understand the approach and the direction the council hopes to take with regards to risk management, which sort of this is the pinnacle of, and a lot sits underneath it, this risk register. Others may have already understood that, but I found the training very valuable. Thank you very much. I don't think we're going to meaningfully chat about 11 different risks. Do we want to pick any out specifically? Do you want to just focus on the people that have done the training? Maybe should talk about this one. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Any specific questions? No, we don't look like we have many. I mean, the one that jumps out on us, again, the red ones are obviously the ones that councillors are going to focus in on first. I think that's only natural. And we have discussed those before. Do we have enough information in this, these slides provided to understand those risks? I think we do. I think they've become quite detailed, quite clear. Everyone's nodding. Is there any specific risks we feel are missing from this strategic list? Currently, they would be sitting at the directorate level, if I've understood it. No, nothing springing to mind. Perfect. Members are obviously happy with the report and happy with the new format of the register. So thank you very much. Are we happy to agree the amended action, which was to consider the register? Thank you all very much, and thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be another training session soon. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. In that case, we move on from item 6 to item 7. Oh, okay. The Q3 performance and monitoring report, which is my favourite one, which was received at policy already, although I'm not at policy. It was agreed at that committee already. Would Darren Carter just like to say a couple of brief sentences to introduce? Oh, sorry. Apologies. Would Stuart like to?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing really to add. So the report sets out the projected revenue and capital outturn positions for 2022-23 as at the end of December for the General Fund and the HRA. It also sets out performance against the measures of success in the corporate plan. And as you said, the report was presented to Policy Committee in March and the recommendations were approved. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Nothing immediately from members, thank you. Okay, are we asked to note the report? Are we happy to note that report? We are. Thank you very much for bringing it anyway. And we move on to the item 8, which is the SIPFA self-assessment with an introduction from, who am I looking for? Stuart again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is the self-assessment against the SIPFA Financial Management Code for 2022-23. 2021-22 self-assessment determined an overall RAG rating of amber on a red, amber, green scale, with 6 of the 17 standards rated as green, 11 amber and 0 red. 2022-23 assessment remains amber overall, but with 8 standards now rated green, 9 amber and again 0 red. These improvements are as a result of significant progress against 3 key areas. The first being the Chief Auditor's Annual Assurance Report improved from limited assurance to reasonable assurance as previously reported to this committee in July last year. The positive findings of the Corporate Peer Challenge that took place in June 2022 and the medium-term financial strategy and budget approved by the Council in February 2023 set a balanced budget for 23-24 without the need to draw on reserves, and it also set a provisionally balanced position for 2024-25. A high-level action plan is attached, which sets out the required actions to improve those standards that have been rated amber to green, and the direction of travel indicates that we should be able to turn a number of those ratings green in the coming year, and we should hopefully be able to report an overall green position when we report on 23-24 this time next year. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Wow, thank you very much. And we're asked to note the findings of this self-assessment. Members, any questions or comments? No, nothing immediate. I mean, for me, I was going to say I enjoyed reading this report, but is that a stretch? I thought this report was really valuable because you can see officers challenging themselves, and the result of that, whether we're currently green, amber or red, is only that we're going to get better. So thank you very much for completing this. I think as a committee we want to see the green areas stay green and the ambers. We want to see a clear plan in place to move the ambers into green, either in the near or nearish future. I realise things don't happen overnight. And I think those are all detailed in the report, and we can watch all those come through next time. So I'm very grateful for this one. Thank you very much for all the hard work that's gone into it. Okay, we're asked to note the findings. Are we all happy? Yes, thank you, committee. Thank you very much. Right, we're moving rapidly on to item 9, the implementation of the new finance system. I'm looking to Darren Carter. Yes, an introduction from Darren.
Thank you. So this brief report explains the latest position on the implementation of the new finance system. At the last meeting of this committee, I reported that a full system readiness assessment was to be undertaken during February in order to give assurance about the planned April go live. Following that readiness assessment, I made the decision to defer the implementation until the autumn of this year. That's clearly disappointing. I had hoped to go live in April, but in my and my team's professional opinion, there were too many risks involved in an April go live. So we took the decision to defer to autumn. A revised project plan has now been developed, and it's currently the subject of an independent review in order to give me and the council assurance that the revised timetable is deliverable and that we have sufficient resources in place in the project to actually make it happen in autumn of this year. Happy to take any questions.
My finger's not pressing the button very well. We are asked to note the progress, which is a shift to the autumn for a go live. That makes the July meeting well timed for an update, I think, which should just come smack before that go live. Any questions? No, we're all happy with that update. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Then we note the report. Noted. Thank you. We move on to item 10, which is the Information Governance Quarterly Update. Is that an introduction from Mike? Mike Graham?
Thank you very much. Yes, I do have an introduction just to draw your attention to some matters which within the report which I wanted to highlight. So firstly, in relation to the subject access requests, members will note that there is still a backlog of cases, though it is pleasing that there has been completion of some of those, and with the additional resource that we've put on those, we've had a gradual reduction in them. I'm pleased to note that we've got a plan to implement the new software system, which I've talked about before in this committee. So that should be starting imminently, and that will hopefully then allow us to, with our additional staffing resources that we've trained up, to clear the backlog and then stay on top of new requests. So I will give you further updates about the success of that in the next quarterly update. Secondly, in relation to the FOI cases, I just wanted to draw your attention to the results from Q3, which we did talk about very briefly in the January meeting, but we didn't have all of the data finalised. Unfortunately, there were a number of glitches in the system which had to be rectified with the supplier in order for us to get the final data out. So we did get the final data out and have circulated this now. I also wanted then to talk about the progress which we're making and our next steps. So first of all, in the results, you can see that yes, some slight improvements, but still not where we wanted to be, because the Q3 total overall is 77.2% of them going out in timescales on the FOIs. However, if you look at the breakdown by month by the directorates, then you can see that there are some good signs, in the sense that we're now, with the work which the team have done, starting to get some areas getting compliance rates at 89, 83. And then that means that overall we've got in 1 month a completion rate of 81.4%, which is good. However, the low scores in some of the directorates then pull the average down, which is disappointing. And of course, we've talked to the ADs and the executive directors about the need for continued vigilance. The work with the FOI main responders group has continued, and all the training that we planned for that group has taken place, and that has been very well received. And so it's good to note that we have got that group now of people that we can work with on a more concentrated basis going forward. So that leads into some of the areas of progress that I wanted to talk about. We have still to be mindful of the fact that our target is 90%, and we are determined to get there and to get to our aspiration target of 95 as well, which we put into the corporate plan. We have done work with taking all the learning that we got from the action plan in the autumn, and we did do a day's session of process mapping out all the learning from those sessions that the services were telling us about all their different issues. And as a result of that, we have now got a very detailed process map of the system and some of the areas in it where we would like to improve for the future. As a result of doing that detailed piece of work, we're also able to spot some areas where we could make immediate improvements around, for instance, in one case, we've changed the escalation procedure because we worked out that it wasn't actually helping us, and we needed to make some immediate changes to that. So we put that into place immediately, and then we're also engaging with the ICT team so that we can develop a 2B picture for a new system to be put on the casework and customer management system, which is being implemented. So that is work which is ongoing, even though we have sort of formally signed off all our action plan and finished the action plan. The action plan moved us so far, but we still recognise we still need to get to that 95% target that we're going for. We will have continued engagement with the Information Commissioner's Office. I think in the spring they will be checking back in with us to see that we were making progress. But they got an early view of our Q3 data, and they were happy that we had made progress, and they were happy just to check in with us on an informal basis that we would continue to make progress. Then I wanted to draw your attention to an item in the Information Governance Board section. It's disappointing that the board received some reports about third-party software systems and the data breaches. Now, those happened, one in children's area, one in the adults area, and there was a response to both of those, and we can't be 100% responsible for cyber attacks on third-party suppliers. However, the key thing was getting the learning out of those incidents, because whilst they were quite small in nature and confined in their scope, it's important for us to understand when we are commissioning third-party software suppliers, when we're running those contracts, when we do have a breach and we have to deal with the after effects, that we've learned the lessons from those two particular incidents. So we have commissioned Leicester City Council to carry out a review. You remember that they did the previous information governance audit review for us a couple of years ago, and so they're helping us with their expertise to do a review independently of that, so we can work out some actions for the future. And then finally, I just wanted to draw attention to the information management strategy that the team have been able to move forward with that successfully with Brighter Futures and with DAX, and they've had kick-off meetings with their data stewards, and they have developed plans of work for those areas, and they'll be rolling out to the rest of the council shortly. So that's good that that work has got underway. So those are the items I wanted to highlight, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Members were asked to note the progress and the future actions and identify matters of interest for future reports should we wish to do so. Do members have any questions for officers? Any thoughts or comments? Not on this one. It was a comprehensive report and introduction. I guess, actually, I did want to just note my thanks, because some of this report talks about the work you're doing on cybersecurity, which links back into the risk register. So I think, like, as a new member to this committee, I'm the chair, but still a new member, it's really welcome to see all the reports connecting up together and helping me understand. Thank you very much for that. I guess my only question is really on the FOI responses, because as you mentioned, the corporate plan, I think it's 90% for this year, 95% 23-24, and 100% of responses within 20 days in 24-25. That's a challenging target, that last one. In fact, they all are. I'm not sure that I'm hearing what's going to get us to hit those challenging targets, especially that 100% one, which is only a year or so away. We don't have a great deal of time to make significant changes before those come in. So first of all, it's clear that progress has been made, which is really welcome, but I'm not quite hearing what gets us to 95 or 100%. What are your thoughts?
No, that's a good question. Thank you, Chairman. I think the answer is really continued vigilance across a number of fronts. We're monitoring the requests weekly at CMT and where they have gone over. We are looking at implementing other early warning and escalation procedures so that we can stop them going over, because it's fine to have 100% completion rate. We've got 100% completion rate. What we haven't got is 100% within 20 days completion rate, and that's the bit which the ICO is very worried about. If we had significant complaints that we weren't actually answering them, that would be another kettle of fish altogether. But we need to get to that timeliness. That timeliness indicator is key, and I think that we will just have to carry on picking up the work that has been given to us by the services, with the issues that they've identified in terms of their ease of using a system, their ease of getting information out at different stages, and how we can eradicate those problems which we know what we've got at the moment, and see if we can address them with a new system, or can take a completely different look at the way we are doing it. Other organisations have been able to do it. So there's no reason why we can't do it. The law is the law. It is compliance on 100% within 20 days. Although there is a sort of tolerance by the Information Commission of about 90, they're looking for more than 90 wherever possible. So it does sound like it's a stretching target, but I do believe that we've, by taking all the actions which the Information Commissioner has recommended in their guidance, in their action plan, we're off to a good start of picking up the chalice on that and working through. So I think if I come back to the committee and you sense that work has stopped or stalled, you'll be quite right to challenge me on why and what is next. But whilst we've got actions which we can still identify and push forward with, I think that's the only thing we can do. I'm not sure I can give you with 100% certainty where the answer lies. We came in here in September and members were asking questions about why we thought the rate was so weak, and we questioned whether or not there was something in the culture of the organisation that people were not prioritising these requests fast enough. But when we did the work with the services, we found out that they were very engaged to help us. There was no sort of underplaying the significance of the seriousness of FOI requests. And not only did they engage with the work which we did with them in the autumn, they've continued to engage in terms of the training, and they've continued to engage with the service, showing us that perhaps we can write that one out, scrub that one out about culture, and we can then look at the other practical issues that people are facing, such as, where there is confusion, where multiple people are cooperating on one answer, and somebody thinks that somebody else is holding the ball, and those practical issues about how we actually get better communication to make sure that we're getting the answer in a timely way. The example that I've given you about the escalation procedure was that when we mapped out the whole process on the wall with all the post-its and every single step identified and every single issue identified, there was a bit of a dead zone around escalation at day 10 after the internal target, and that was when we decided to change the process because the system wasn't working for us and we had to put something else into place, which we did. So I think it's issues like that, picking up every single thing that we can find and working it through. And the next stage will be to see, right, let's see if we can eradicate all the other glitches which we know there are in the present system. Will it work in the new format of the customer and case management system which is coming on stream? And if not, we'll have to think again about how we're going to tackle it. Sorry, that doesn't give you 100% certainty that we're going to get to 100%, does it?
I think the key element for me is hearing that whenever you're speaking to a senior manager, that they are prioritising this. Once that prioritisation across the whole corporate sort of structure is in place, then you've got to get the mechanism right. But it'd be pointless having the mechanism right if no one cared to use it. So it may just take a little time. But thank you very much. Oh yes, Councillor Gittings.
Well, sorry, I'm just bewildered how a system which presumably alerts you that you're running out of time and this can actually address this problem. Sure, in the end, humans answer these queries. I mean, unless we can get ChatGPT to do it, which may be something for the future. I'm a little bit puzzled. I'm glad that we're addressing it, and I think it's a very challenging target. So I was going to ask how many councils actually meet this, because it appears to me a bit like my question about auditing, audit of the accounts. We're not saying we shouldn't try, but it seems a very challenging target given the nature and complexity of some of these inquiries.
That's a good question. I do think that it is down to the people to answer them. The people have got the answers, but we have to help them get the answers to us, and we can format them and get them out. and inevitably there's the people and the system working together, which is the bit we've got to get right. It's difficult to know what other local authorities are doing because you're not required, although there's a statutory target to meet, you're not required to publish your target. We've come to the attention of the Information Commissioner because we published our own targets in these reports because we were alert to the fact that we had a problem and we needed to address it. So Mr. Harrington alerted us to the problem, and I've come here to tell you how I'm addressing it, and it's got picked up. So that's helpful and transparent in one way, but I've asked other local authorities what their data is, and interestingly, they haven't provided the data, which is a bit of an irony. The government departments publish their data, and they get up to that 90+% from the Information Commissioners, but they've probably got a lot of good resource behind it as well.
Thank you. That's a good question. It's always worth benchmarking ourselves against other authorities where possible. So, are there any other questions or concerns or anything, or do we wish to identify any other matters of interest, or are we happy to note the report? Okay, thank you very much. Report noted. We are on to the final item, which is item 11, the Audit Recommendations Tracker, a new, more focused version with an introduction from Charlie Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Last but not hopefully least, just a few things, members. Just a reminder that the Chief Auditor, of course, says where there is assurance or limited or no insurance. That's great, and that's one thing to focus on, but this of course then says how we're going to bring that assurance back into being. As mentioned, Chair, there was one change in what we're looking at to try and bring focus, or more focus, to yourselves, and that was outlined in paragraph 1.3 regarding limited or no assurance only being shown on these. The other thing that might just be worth noting on what is actually shown in the tracker, because it has been commented on elsewhere and previously, is noted in paragraph 4.4, so that not only does it show the percentages where you get a red and an amber and a green, but it also notes that any recommendations that are less than 50% complete but have exceeded their agreed completion date are also marked red. You will see in the tracker that where it looks like the column that says that they have got a completion date seems to suggest it would be red because they've exceeded it. Just to note, and we need to do some work on this, that was the originally agreed completion date, not the completion date that is now agreed, and that is the difference between the two. From the discussion we've had with the Chair, yes, we do need to make that more obvious and potentially make it more obvious of why that agreed date has changed. That said, just to take forward on 4.8 where we are at this moment in time, and noting the change that we did make, there are 6 reds. And maybe that is the area that you would wish to have a look at. The first red is on page 343, I do believe, and I will ask the Director of Finance, since we are trying to bring focus to this, to make a comment on the red that's there, which is on the intercompany accounting in a second or two. The rest of the reds are to do with the direct payments, which is why I did say, Chair, that potentially you want to note on this. Because although you hear of the limited or insurance in that area that's just been given, this actually says when the completion date for the action should be done, and some of those have been passed, so it gives you a potential bit of an urgency on that. We might be able to answer some questions on that, but if you're bringing the officer to ask directly, that might be worth waiting until then. But maybe the Director of Finance, since we are providing some focus, would like to say something on the intercompany accounting rate.
Yes, so ultimately the implementation of the new accounting arrangements for intercompany will be built into the advanced E5 system. So originally we were hoping that that system would go live in April, but as I said earlier, we've had to defer that to the autumn. Acknowledging that we haven't got the fully integrated system up and running as of today, we have put in manual intervention in relation to this specific area. Stuart, to my right, is taking personal lead with Brighter Futures on agreeing the intercompany balances at the end of the year, and those we anticipate will be agreed with Brighter Futures by the end of next week, in order to make sure that Brighter Futures comply with their requirement to get their audit done in terms of company law. So we haven't completed it, so it is a red risk, but actually we've got mitigations in place, and ultimately when the new system does go live, the new method for intercompany accounting will be built into that system.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. No one's indicating straight away. I might just ask. We're nearly done. Members, don't worry. We're looking at a list of items which hold an original audit completion date, and some of the rules about how they're RAG rated is driven by that. And what we're looking at is we're saying some of these actually have an agreed date, but it just isn't in our report. Is that a new and agreed date with the internal audit team? I'm looking over at Mr. Harrington. How does that new and agreed date come about? And because some of our RAG rating is driven from it.
These are limited and no assurance audit areas, so we follow them up and we go back and we test and we check that the service has done what we asked them to do. Now, a good example would be the intercompany accounting. We've been looking to follow that up for quite some time, but Mr. Carter has said, at the moment, this is the issue, this is the problem. We've now got a manual process in place because we're waiting for the implementation of the new system. So we would extend those dates, and that was we agree upon. So usually it gets flagged when we're flagging up that we're coming to do a second review, a follow-up. And then if the manager says, look, we're really struggling, it could be a resource implication, whatever, can you push it back X number of months, then that will be agreed with myself.
Perfect. Right. So those are agreed through the team which originally raised these issues in the first place. So that sounds good to us. I mean, for members, we're looking at the individual lines, but we're also and at the trend as well as of the red, amber and green. So we're seeing those work through, and we're given in this report the trend by age as well. So we're seeing some of them are obviously brand new from the most recent audits. Some of them have some considerable time been lingering on these spreadsheets. So I think it's important we don't just think of it as a spreadsheet, but these are actual issues that people are working through. I don't think I have any specific questions. Do we? Do we want to drill down into those areas, or are we going to? We're happy to wait for an officer to come in and speak to us, which we've already done. Anything else that we'd like to raise now? No, nothing at all. So I think, yeah, we're okay. Well, we're happy with the recommended action. And we'll vote on that. Everyone happy? Thank you very much. Thank you to officers. That then, because we did items 12 and 13, is the end of our meeting, a much warmer meeting than last time. And that's my last as chair for this year. I don't know who will be members of Audit and Governance next year, but thank you to everyone for supporting me in the chair over this year. That was very kind of members and officers. And we are closed. Thank you.